Welcome back, everybody. It is now time for the overtime segment on Inside D2 Football, where we get to be sarcastic, answer your complaints.
Unfiltered.
Well, are we ever really filtered, though?
Well, if you're posting this on YouTube later, I guess we're kind of filtered, but...
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and answer questions, criticism, compliments, all those alike. Chuck, you picked the first one.
We got a couple here from K-Ferg's fan club. So why don't we just throw a couple on here and see?
Always the way to start.
Fantastic. That's a whole show right there.
Yes. So, K-Ferg, do you see a path in which Virginia State and Virginia Union both get playoff bids?
Well, when you look at the fact that Virginia Union is already got one loss, 2 losses is going to be very difficult to overcome. I think their schedule is kind of soft as well. It's possible. You'd probably be looking at like a Fort Valley getting out of the way for one. You've got the South Atlantic that needs to continue to beat up on itself as well to make it happen. So is it possible? Yeah, but again, we have this conversation every year that the CIAA doesn't play 11 games, only plays 10 games, and only the conference, the division winners play 11 games. So it's possible, but it is definitely an uphill battle. I tell you, that loss to Fayetteville State just really, really hurts in this case.
Here's another one for you, Ferg. And actually, I want Whit to chime in on this as well, because he was bending my ear on this topic.
Bending your ear.
Bending my ear on a different school. But I don't know. Is it normal?
So there have been times where refs, at least in the CIAA, the Kentucky States and the SIAC, but certainly in the CIAA, the refs have had to get the band to stop playing during drives like that. And they're more likely to call it when the opposing team is playing on offense and the band's playing. So it just depends league by league, and I'm not as sure about the SIAC, but I would not be surprised at all.
Well, it's interesting that this even came up. So I was watching Pitt State and Emporia because I was going to chat about them on our show. I noticed the first time Emporia gets the football at Pitt, the band is playing full blown while Emporia is trying to run their offense. And I was thinking, interesting. And they get done with their drive. Pitt gets the ball. No band. Emporia gets the ball back. Full-blown band. And I thought to myself, Brandon and I kind of chat about this, like, isn't this a rule? And, it's one thing if we're talking about a team that's, won for on the year, but when we're talking about a team here who's a top seed potentially, kind of drew my attention a little bit.
Yep.
All I know is that
really
Kentucky State's band was fantastic. Fantastic. The number of songs they played, all from I can't even conceive of the amount of rehearsal those kids do. They were awesome.
Brandon,
band is one of those things that I was gonna say, band is one of those things that they do that during the summertime. Like they come to school early and they're practicing and they're marching, through campus and things like that. So I mean, it's a legit sport.
As it's a point of pride at HBCUs, isn't it, Chris?
Oh, totally.
I was a band geek in high school
absolutely.
too, so I get some of that stuff. But boy, those they were tremendous.
So I don't think there's a rule that says the band can't play while they're snapping the football in the regular season. Now, when you get to the playoffs, there is. But I think during the regular season, you can play. But you don't want to play when your offense is on the field, right? Because that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You want to play when the other team's offense is on the field. But
I think it's at any time during gameplay when the ball is.
That's been my understanding, but
yeah.
Anyway,
I
enough
don't
on that
know
one.
But it's definitely something for us to kind of continue dialogue and overtime again.
But I know in the playoffs, you can't do it. But I
Right.
don't know if there's anything on the record for the regular season. I'm not 100%.
Stay tuned for our spinoff show about marching bands.
I think it should be disallowed at all times. I do not like that. It angers me. All right.
Yeah. Brandon, I wanted you to just speak to this. I know we've had Antonio on the show before, but go ahead and speak to this if you would.
Yeah. And he was on the show after week 1. Grand Valley played at Colorado Mines, and then they played at Pueblo. Antonio's been on before, so go check out that show if you want to see his insights. And quite frankly, most of the good stuff in the RMAC happened at the beginning of the year. That's when we had him on. Yeah. So he is an extremely. He's been a great addition to D2 football. So
absolutely,
we're happy.
Absolutely,
100%.
His columns are very, very good. Yeah. Let's see, where do we want to go next? I've got one queued up for last. I'll just do this one quick. Tiffin should break into the top 25 this week. I'm kind of hoping so. I mean, it's tough. I know, a lot of you guys are voters. It is tough when you get down to the last few to see who's in, who's out, and how does Tiffin stack up with some of those teams that might be a 1-loss or 2-loss. But I've had Tiffin in my top 25 for at least 2 weeks, I think. So I think they've earned it. I hope they'll make it.
Chuck, you know what, to kind of go on top of what you were saying there, you've got Virginia State that we talked about. We've got Augustana, also unbeaten. Permian Basin, Tiffin, Wayne State, Nebraska. You got a bunch of teams who are kind of knocking at that door. Yeah. And, I can already see it right now. Dumb take 5,004. My team was ranked 24th. How am I not ranked now?
I thought you were saying
when
that.
I hear that, people are out of their tiny little minds. Here's the deal: you get flipped. You know what? You got passed. That's what happened.
Yes.
If you play a bad team and someone else shows more merit, this is not a standings where you're at 24 from now until forever. So right. I'm sorry, this is overtime. I just needed to blow some steam off on that.
Well, I'll give you a really good use case. We had our friends at D3 football were taking heat today because their poll came out, and Susquehanna dropped a spot because they were overtaken by Wisconsin lacrosse. Susquehanna played, I don't remember who they played, but they beat somebody 69-0. So obviously they were not tested anyway. Lacrosse won at Wisconsin Whitewater, multi-time
big
national
win.
champion, like
big win
in front of 20,000 people.
Right.
The largest on-campus D3 game in history. And the guys at D3 were getting heat because lacrosse actually moved ahead of Susquehanna. Like, that wasn't deserved. End rant.
All right, awesome. Hey, Chuck, since you have one you want to end with, I'll let you go ahead and control it all, okay? So go ahead and pick the comments as you wish.
This show usually goes best when I'm in control, so we'll ride that out.
I just like how the whole top row has gotten all out of joint here.
Hey, can we, before we hit that, can I just come back and circle on one thing? So I do have a copy of the 2023 rule book that was provided to me. And it is an unsportsmanlike conduct, live ball foul, automatic first down if there's music or band or anything like that during play.
How about that?
Right.
Well, there was only a quarter and a half when I was watching against Emporia. So
even in the regular season,
what it says.
Oh man, I need to start making some phone calls.
Well,
is that going to help out Winston-Salem State?
Persons subject to the rules, including bands, audio, video, lighting system operators, shall not create any noise or distraction that prohibits a team from hearing its signals or obstructs play. I don't know if it obstructs play or not, but that's what the rule says.
All right. Well,
interpret that how you will.
Just like, I was just going to say, that's just like Winston actually got a penalty for going too long for halftime. So, I mean, it happens.
Yeah, I think we talked about this one. Witt kind of gave more head to do, but I thought it was good just to bring that up for some viewership as well.
Yep.
I'll cover this one really quickly. This pertained to the Harlon Hill conversation. If Slippery Rock goes deep into the playoffs, their QB may get a look. I don't think so, and the reason why I don't think so is because I expect Slippery Rock will nominate Kyle Sheets. And I'm coming back to this because, again, this is something that I know this will come up later in the year when people complain about a player not being discussed or considered or not being on the ballot. Remember, the schools nominate their player. So if Slippery Rock's quarterback isn't talked about, it's probably because Kyle Sheets is the one who was nominated. I expect The Rock will nominate Sheets because he's a phenomenal player. He's putting up great numbers, and he's getting a lot of pro potential, pro looks as well. And being talked about in the Harlon Hill consideration is just going to extend their reach to get pro scouts to put eyes on him. So I just wanted to mention that.
Right.
Anybody can take this one. I would take out Kendra Givens and put in Braden Gleason. I mean, we're just throwing out names right now, but
Right.
I'll jump on this. Okay, you want to come to me with this, Clay? Okay. Here's why he won't. He's going to get dump trucked by Central's quarterback, who's going to be in the top 3. So any other quarterback in the MIAA is. That's how this works.
Dump truck. Dump truck.
Yeah. I wanted to put this up. So I think this, you can obviously see now we do see these comments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, Todd did have a question earlier about Jack Strand, the quarterback from Moorhead, possibly getting his name in there. I just think that when you have a team, that's almost like having a running back from Harding when you run it every play or you pass it every play. That kind of puts an asterisk next to your name to some extent if we're going to really measure your stats. I mean, it's your team doesn't even make an effort to run the football at that point. So if it's all throws, it's kind of hard to compare him with other receivers that are trying to have some level of balance on their offense.
Yep. Thanks for this mention. Craig Reynolds, D2 alum, played at Kutztown, got a touchdown today for the Lions against my Panthers. Congrats, Craig. That's awesome. Big deal for you. I thought this was a good observation. Ouachita has thrown a good bit more this year. Games are a little bit longer. This was actually in the context of people talking about how short the Ouachita and Harding game would be. Again, good observation here by Chris. Ouachita has thrown a little bit more this year, and they've been very successful at it too.
Hey, bring up John Dykstra's comment. I want to play hammer and nail with him. Okay. Were we trying to determine who was going to finish second best? We're talking about who's going to win the award.
Nobody cares about who
Mike,
the second or third.
You done? Was that the mic drop?
I mean, do I have to explain it? Next week we'll do a whole bit on the Harlon Hill runner-up and try and determine who's going to be the Harlon Hill runner-up.
Wait, I thought we already did that tonight.
Yes.
I think I'm going to be sick next week.
Brandon, you must have tagged this one. I did not.
I don't know anything about it. That's why I was asking. Yeah.
I don't either. I was actually unaware of this because I was watching bits and pieces of this game because I was actually home in the middle of the afternoon and I felt like I was being punished. So I had to go away from that.
Well,
and go back to the other games.
Felt like I was being
punished. The statement the SAC put out was pretty nondescriptive, so it doesn't really say. There's not really been put a lot out on social media, so it's kind of unclear. Obviously, there was an altercation that happened after the game. Probably, I would assume between the players. Don't know where, don't know how. But it just says that the schools are meeting with the officials, and that's it. So it's pretty nondescriptive.
Well, Justin, I talked about this on a podcast during the week with the host. I'm being cheeky. Justin and I talked about this on his podcast. It is a rivalry game. It does tend to get a little bit chippy. The two SAC schools in Tennessee. But I don't like to see that happen, especially when neither team is having a particularly good season. These are not the things that I want to talk about with those teams. I know people there. I'd like to talk about good things, and that's not a good one. Is Super Region is it Slippery Rocks to lose, the number 1 seed? Yeah, I think so. I've said that they're clearly the best team in Super Region 1. Now they do still have a tough path to get that number 1 seed, particularly because I think Tiffin has a really good shot to go undefeated. And Slippery Rock's path to undefeated at this point is a bit tougher. So I think if they win out, absolutely they get it. Maybe even with a loss, they still get it. But there's still a lot of work to do there. but I do think it's theirs to lose for sure. And Brandon, unless you've seen any others that you want to tag, we'll close with this one.
Okay, go ahead. That's my old friend Martin Chapa. He has been around forever, and he's also an individual who thought 40 degrees in Maryville is cold. Anybody who thinks 40 degrees in Maryville is cold should go to Duluth in December. But anyway, please.
Yeah. So McKinney ISD looks good on TV. Well, it looks good in person too. It's a phenomenal facility. It's got its shortcomings, but it's a phenomenal facility. Where's the next best place for the game 5, 10, 15 years from now? Well, let's, I think we can actually speak more immediately about that. This comes up all the time. Where should the championship game be played? So it's fodder. If you guys want to discuss.
Well, the best place was Sporting Kansas City until they stopped and until the weather was bad. That was the best that I've ever experienced. Whit and Chuck, you were both there, and that was pretty incredible. Venue, atmosphere, and the weather was great that day. That was the best. I knew that day that I thought it's never going to be better than this ever. And I was right, because the next year we played in the Winter Wonderland, and then the next year we were in Texas. And thank God they bailed us out, because Sporting Kansas City did not. In fact, they shoved it up our butt. So,
yeah, I think that's the most important thing is that McKinney ISD and the Lone Star Conference, came through when we really needed help for that championship game. I kind of prefer smaller market, but it does need to play. It does need to be a place that's easy to travel to. Preferably, predictable weather environment, hotel and media accommodations, all that stuff, places for the teams to work out. I tend to prefer small market. The game's just kind of lost in Dallas. There's just so much going on there. It's just not, even compared to the high school games that happen in that stadium, it just gets lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, and that's the trade-off, right, Chuck? Because, it's easier to get into Dallas. There's lots to do, et cetera, but anybody who's been to Bradley, the way Florence just made that event an event, the whole city was up for it. They took care of the kids when they came down. I don't know. I'm with you, Chuck. That's the smaller market really makes that happen because it's such a big deal for the city.
I would say, though, that I think that the part that a lot of people miss is, and I will tell you that McKinney has done a phenomenal job the last couple of years. I never went to Kansas City, so I can't really talk about that. But the one thing I can talk about is everybody sees a game on TV and they think that's the extent of it, but it's not. There is so much in the week leading up to it, and that championship experience that is something that is, I would say, almost as important, if not more important, than the game itself. Just that championship. The championship experience.
I push back a little bit, Justin, and say that you're slightly biased because you really know the inside outs of it. And I think the question is not about what's best when they're asking that question. It's not about what's best for the players or the coaches. They're asking what's best for the fans, I think. And I think those are two different things. Because I think it was probably Florence was as good as it was ever going to be for the kids.
Sure.
But might not have been for the fans. So I think that's two different things. So.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. But I think, I agree with you.
Yeah, well, you should.
We can go around and around all night. I don't disagree.
I'll just circle back to this.
Okay.
Can we not agree for all teams to respect your opponent's property? Why do people even need to do this? Just stay away from that. Don't do it.
I used to not believe in handshakes after the game because you get some disturbances. But and I think I've said this before, but a local radio guy once said we expect policemen to run down a suspect in a crime and treat them decently after they catch them. And if we have that expectation from policemen who might suspect somebody from a crime, we should probably be able to act with some class after a football game. So I thought that's a great point, and I changed my mind on that. And any kind of clown show needs to stop. I've said it in the past about other teams that have done some stuff, and we'll say it about was that Tusculum and Carson Newman? Is that what that was?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Now,
Brandon, unless you've seen any others, this is the last one. So I'll give this one to
Good.
Bradley since he's such a
Send me that one.
good supporter of all of us. How good is Cal? Well, I'll respond to that question with a question. How bad is IUP? Man, the wheels have just kind of fallen off for IUP, and the wheels just kind of fallen off there. And then Karst got hurt on Saturday, and now we don't know. We don't know what his future looks like there for the rest of the season. So, tough outing for the Crimson Hawks. But no, I'm being a little facetious there. Cal is good. I watched a couple games already. I think that they are very good. In no way, shape, or form are they going to concede to PSAC West to Slippery Rock. I do think that'll be a tough game. I think Slippery Rock is better. But Cal will have their say in this. They are a very good football team. The quarterback who took over this year is really coming into his own. Davis Black, I think, is his name. Really playing well. Big kid. Looks like a defensive end playing quarterback. So, I think Cal's got a good future. Great coaching staff there.
All right, guys, we are going to end it there. It's been a pleasure having you all with us. And thank you, everybody out there, for watching Inside D2 Football. We will see you next week.